Have you ever watched a season finale and suddenly felt like your favorite show was quietly saying goodbye without actually saying the words? Because that is exactly what happened when Call the Midwife Season 15 came to an end. One moment, fans were expecting another emotional but hopeful conclusion. The next moment, they were staring at their screens, wondering if the entire future of the series was hanging by a thread. And honestly, can you blame them? The final episodes delivered one emotional blow after another. Beloved characters faced uncertain futures. Nonnatus House seemed to be standing on unstable ground. Major changes were announced. Long-term plans were discussed. And before fans even had time to process everything, a new question started spreading across social media and fan communities. Is Call the Midwife Season 16 canceled? For a show that has spent years making audiences laugh, cry, and fall in love with the people of Poplar, that question feels almost impossible to imagine. Yet the longer fans wait for official updates, the louder those concerns become. But what if the truth is far more complicated than simple cancellation? What if the future of Call the Midwife is changing in ways nobody expected? And what if the biggest surprise isn't that the series is ending, but that it's preparing for something much larger? Today we're diving deep into everything we know about Call the Midwife Season 16, why fans are worried, what the shocking finale may have revealed, and whether the beloved BBC drama is truly facing its final chapter. Because the answer may not be what anyone expected. It is rare for a television show to create panic among its fans without officially announcing anything. Yet somehow, Call the Midwife managed to do exactly that. The moment the Season 15 finale aired, viewers immediately began asking questions that nobody wanted to ask. And the reason is simple. The ending didn't feel like a normal season finale. It felt like a farewell. For years, Call the Midwife has mastered the art of emotional storytelling. The show knows how to make audiences cry, celebrate, worry, and hope all within a single episode. But this time, the atmosphere felt different. There was a sense that something major was changing behind the scenes. Perhaps the biggest reason for concern was the uncertainty surrounding Nonnatus House itself. For longtime viewers, Nonnatus House is more than just a building. It is the heart of the entire series. It is where friendships were formed, lives were changed, and countless unforgettable stories began. The idea of losing it feels almost impossible to imagine. Yet the finale placed that future into serious doubt. When discussions began about new directions, possible relocations, and uncertain plans, many fans immediately assumed the worst. Suddenly, it seemed as if the foundation of the show was being pulled apart piece by piece. Then came another concern. Several characters appeared to be moving into completely different stages of their lives. Some received exciting career opportunities. Others found themselves facing major personal responsibilities. New paths began opening up in different directions. And while growth is usually a good thing, fans couldn't help noticing one troubling detail. Everyone seemed to be preparing for change at the same time. That is usually the kind of thing audiences see when a series is wrapping up. Think about it. When television shows reach their final chapters, writers often begin giving characters emotional conclusions. They start creating future plans. They provide closure. They allow people to move on. And that's exactly why viewers became nervous. Every conversation about the future felt significant. Every goodbye felt slightly longer than usual. Every emotional moment carried extra weight. Then social media made everything even more dramatic. Within hours of the finale, fan discussions exploded online. Some viewers were convinced the show was ending forever. Others believed the BBC was secretly preparing a final season announcement. A few even speculated that the cast might be leaving one by one. Suddenly, rumors were spreading everywhere, and the longer official answers failed to arrive, the more those rumors grew. The situation became even more confusing when reports started appearing about upcoming projects connected to the franchise. Instead of hearing immediate news about Season 16, fans began hearing about movies, prequels, and future expansions. Now, normally that would sound like good news, but for worried fans, it created a new fear. What if these new projects were replacing the original series? What if Call the Midwife was transforming into something completely different? The uncertainty became almost as stressful as the finale itself. After all, viewers have invested more than a decade in these characters. They've watched babies being born, families facing impossible struggles, communities changing through the decades, and friendships surviving every challenge imaginable. Nobody wants to hear that journey might be coming to an end. And yet, despite all the fears, all the rumors, and all the speculation, there is one important detail that many fans may have overlooked. A detail that completely changes the conversation. Because while the future of Call the Midwife may look different than expected, that doesn't necessarily mean the show is ending. In fact, some of the biggest clues about season 16 suggest the exact opposite. And once fans discovered what was happening behind the scenes, the story suddenly became far more interesting than anyone imagined. So, if Call the Midwife is not officially canceled, then why are fans so worried? Well, the answer lies in one word that television audiences absolutely hate hearing: delay. The moment people hear that their favorite show is taking longer than usual to return, panic starts spreading. And in the case of Call the Midwife, the delay has been significant enough to make even loyal viewers nervous. For years, the series followed a familiar pattern. Fans knew exactly when they could expect new episodes. Every year felt like a reunion with old friends. No matter how emotional the previous season had been, there was always comfort in knowing another chapter was right around the corner. But this time, things are different. Instead of preparing for another routine return, the franchise appears to be entering a completely new phase. And that change is what has created so much confusion. You see, many viewers assumed that if season 16 wasn't arriving in its usual slot, something must have gone wrong. Maybe ratings had dropped. Maybe production problems had appeared. Maybe the network had quietly decided to move on. But the reality may be far more surprising. Rather than shrinking, Call the Midwife seems to be expanding, and that expansion could be the very reason season 16 is taking longer to arrive. Think about it for a moment. Most television dramas spend years trying to survive. They fight for renewals. They struggle to maintain audiences. They hope to avoid cancellation. Call the Midwife has somehow done the opposite. Instead of fading away, it has grown into one of the most successful and beloved British dramas of its generation. That kind of success creates opportunities. Suddenly, the creators are no longer thinking about a single television season. They are thinking about bigger stories, larger projects, new ways to explore the world that fans have loved for years. And that's where things start getting interesting. Reports about a Call the Midwife film immediately caught fans' attention. The idea of seeing these characters continue their journey on a larger scale sounded exciting. But it also raised a question. If a movie is being developed, where does that leave season 16? For some viewers, the answer seemed obvious. Maybe the movie was replacing the show. Maybe the film would serve as a final goodbye. Maybe the television series had reached the end of the road. But those assumptions may have been premature. Because everything we've heard suggests that the movie is not replacing the series at all. Instead, it appears to be part of a much bigger plan. And that's not the only surprise. As fans were still trying to process the movie news, another announcement created even more discussion: a prequel series. Yes, a prequel. Suddenly, Call the Midwife wasn't just a long-running drama anymore. It was becoming an entire franchise. Now imagine being a fan hearing all of this at once. The current series is delayed, a movie is coming, a prequel is in development, major characters are facing uncertain futures. And Noneta's house itself seems to be undergoing enormous changes. No wonder people started assuming the worst. From the outside, it looked like the original show was being dismantled. But what if that's not what's happening? What if the franchise is simply evolving? Because when you look closely, there are actually several reasons to feel optimistic. First, nobody involved with this series has suggested that the story is finished. In fact, many signs point toward the opposite conclusion. The creators continue talking about future possibilities. The world of Poplar continues expanding. New stories are being planned. And perhaps most importantly, the emotional investment in these characters remains stronger than ever. That is not usually what happens when a show is preparing to disappear. When television series truly reach the end, there is often a sense of finality. Storylines close. Characters receive definitive endings. The future becomes clear. But Call the Midwife has done something very different. Instead of closing doors, it has opened new ones. Of course, that doesn't mean fans should stop worrying completely, because there is still one major question hanging over everything: the cast. After all, a show can survive delays. It can survive format changes, it can even survive major story shifts. But can it survive losing the characters audiences have spent years loving? That is the question keeping many viewers awake at night. Because as season 15 came to a close, several familiar faces appeared to be standing at important crossroads. And some of those crossroads may determine exactly what season 16 looks like when it finally arrives. The future of Poplar may still be secure, but the future of its beloved residents is another mystery entirely. And that mystery may be the biggest challenge Call the Midwife has faced in years. If there is one thing that scares television fans more than a delayed season, it is the possibility of losing their favorite characters. And right now, that fear is hanging over Call the Midwife like a dark cloud. Because while season 16 appears to be moving forward in some form, nobody can say with complete certainty which familiar faces will be there when it arrives. That uncertainty started growing long before the finale ended. Throughout season 15, several characters found themselves standing at major turning points in their lives. Some were building families, some were taking on bigger responsibilities. Others seemed ready for entirely new adventures. At first, these developments felt natural. After all, people grow, lives change, characters evolve. That has always been one of Call the Midwife's greatest strengths. Unlike many television dramas, this series allows its characters to move forward realistically. They don't stay frozen in time. They mature. They make difficult decisions. They discover new dreams. But when multiple characters begin moving in different directions at the same time, fans naturally start asking questions. Could some of them be preparing to leave? Could season 16 look very different from previous seasons? And perhaps most importantly, can the show remain the same if key characters move on? Let's start with one of the biggest names, Trixie. Over the years, she has become one of the most beloved figures in the entire series. Viewers have watched her experience heartbreak, triumph, personal struggles, and incredible growth. She is no longer just a talented midwife. She has become one of the central pillars of the show. That is why recent developments surrounding her character have attracted so much attention. Trixie now has enormous responsibilities. Her professional life has expanded dramatically. Her personal life continues to evolve. Every season seems to push her into larger leadership roles. And because of that, some fans wonder whether her future could look very different from her past. Not because she wants to leave, but because life itself may be taking her somewhere new. Then there are the younger members of the team. Several characters have reached important milestones in their careers. New opportunities have appeared, promotions have been earned. Fresh challenges are waiting around every corner. Under normal circumstances, these would simply be exciting story developments. But in the middle of all the uncertainty surrounding season 16, every career move suddenly feels significant. Every new opportunity feels like a potential goodbye. Every major decision feels loaded with hidden meaning. And that creates a fascinating situation. Because viewers are now analyzing every conversation, every storyline, and every emotional moment as if it contains clues about the future. The result is a fandom that has become part detective, part fortune teller. People are constantly searching for signs. Who looked emotional during the finale? Who talked about future plans? Who seemed satisfied with where their story ended? Who appeared ready for a fresh beginning? The speculation never stops. Yet despite all these concerns, there is an important reason for optimism. Call the Midwife has faced cast changes before. In fact, one of the most remarkable things about the series is its ability to survive transitions. Over the years, beloved characters have arrived and departed. Fan favorites have moved on. New faces have stepped into the spotlight. And somehow, the show continued to thrive. That isn't easy. Many television dramas collapse when key cast members leave. Audiences lose interest. The chemistry disappears. The magic fades away. But Call the Midwife has repeatedly proven that it is different. The reason is simple. The heart of the series has never belonged to one single character. It belongs to the community. It belongs to Poplar. It belongs to the relationships between people facing life's greatest joys and deepest sorrows. That emotional core remains powerful regardless of which characters are currently carrying the story. Still, there is one character whose uncertain future may be causing more concern than anyone else. And strangely enough, that character isn't a person. It's Nonatus House. For more than a decade, Noneta's house has been the beating heart of the series. It is where friendships began. It is where nurses and nuns came together. It is where countless emotional stories unfolded. Without it, Call the Midwife almost feels unimaginable, which is exactly why the finale's developments created so much anxiety. The possibility of major changes to Noneta's house felt almost symbolic, as if the show itself was preparing to enter unfamiliar territory. And maybe it is. But unfamiliar doesn't necessarily mean bad. In fact, the biggest clues suggest that the future may involve transformation rather than destruction. A new setting, a new structure, a new chapter, not an ending. And when fans finally realized what the producers might be planning, many started seeing the situation differently. Because instead of asking whether Call the Midwife is ending, a much more exciting question began to emerge. What if Season 16 is preparing to reinvent the entire series? And if that happens, the next chapter could become one of the most ambitious in the show's history. After months of uncertainty, emotional reactions, and endless speculation, one important fact continues to stand out. Nobody has officially said that Call the Midwife is over. In fact, the biggest signs point in the opposite direction. Yes, Season 16 is taking longer than expected. Yes, major changes are happening. And yes, the future may look very different from the version of the show fans have known for years. But different does not mean finished. If anything, the franchise appears to be preparing for its next evolution. The planned movie, the upcoming prequel, and the discussions about future stories all suggest that the people behind Call the Midwife still believe there is more life left in this world. They are not closing the book. They are simply turning the page. And honestly, that may be exactly what the series needs. After more than a decade on television, most shows begin repeating themselves. Storylines become predictable. Characters stop growing. The magic slowly fades away. But Call the Midwife has never been a show about standing still. The world changes, medicine changes, families change, communities change, and somehow, the series has always found a way to change with them. That is why many fans are beginning to see the current situation differently. Instead of fearing an ending, they are starting to wonder what comes next. Will Noneta's house survive in its current form? Will familiar faces return? Will new characters step forward? Will the movie completely reshape the future of the franchise? Right now, nobody knows for sure. And perhaps that mystery is exactly what makes Season 16 so exciting. For the first time in years, the future feels unpredictable again. Anything could happen. New friendships could form. New challenges could emerge. Old characters could return when fans least expect it. The next chapter could take the series into places it has never gone before. But one thing remains certain. The emotional heart of Call the Midwife is still beating. The stories of compassion, sacrifice, friendship, and hope continue to matter. Those themes are the reason millions of viewers have stayed connected to this series for so many years. And as long as those emotions remain at the center of the story, Call the Midwife will still feel like Call the Midwife. So, is Season 16 canceled? Based on everything we know right now, the answer appears to be no. Delayed? Yes. Changing? Absolutely. Entering a new era? Very likely. Canceled? Not at all. The real question is not whether Call the Midwife will return. The real question is what kind of future will be waiting when it does. And judging by all the clues we've seen so far, that future may end up being one of the most fascinating chapters the series has ever delivered. Until then, fans can only do what they have always done best. Wait. Hope. And prepare themselves for the next emotional roller coaster that Call the Midwife inevitably has waiting around the corner. Because if this show's history has taught us anything, it's that the biggest surprises usually arrive when nobody sees them coming.